filming this, it is March 15th, 2021, and we just finished, there's a cool bird going overhead, we just finished up in Colorado with a really big March blizzard, I guess is what they were calling it. They were making it sound like it was going to be this devastating snowpocalypse with like 5 feet of snow, but it was intense, but it wasn't. It was still pretty typical March, and I say all that, and I'm filming all this because a really common question I get on my channel from people who are wanting to move to Colorado and they find my videos looking for advice is they want to know, how bad is the snow here really? And honestly, that question makes a lot of sense. A lot of people who move to Colorado are moving from climates that are really different from ours, and snow can be really intimidating to people who haven't been around it much and don't know what to expect. So in this video, I'm going to give you a bigger rundown on what to expect in winter, what this snow here is really like, and how you can best prepare for it. First of all, in all my other videos where I talk about Colorado and moving to Colorado, and in particular the weather here, I always mention that winter here really isn't that bad. And I say that bad in comparison to winter in other places like the Midwest or even the East Coast. The snow we get here is usually much lighter. It also tends to melt more quickly because we get so much sun here, and because it's a drier climate, it's not that humid cold that just like sticks to your bones. It's cold, but it's usually a pretty tolerable cold. So that's always the first thing I say when people admit their fears of moving to Colorado because they're afraid of winter. But winter is still winter. It does still get cold here. Obviously it snows here. We're a little bit famous for that. And the temperatures can get really cold sometimes. But the thing that makes Colorado winter so much more enjoyable and fun than those other places is because when it does get really cold, or when it does have a really big snow here, it goes away more quickly. The cold doesn't stick around for weeks and weeks. It's cold for like maybe like 4 days max, and then the sun comes out again. We're weirdly in bikinis in January again, and that's just how it goes. Okay, that was probably an exaggeration. We're not really in bikinis in January, but I mean, maybe some people are, but it's not super common. You might see sandals in January. I've done that. So summing up, Colorado, it's winter, but not winter like in Missouri or winter in Massachusetts. It's better than that, a little bit. The next question. So when does winter even really happen in Colorado? Because that is also kind of weird in Colorado. Our first snow here usually comes sometimes in October, but I very clearly remember I've spent a lot of years in Colorado, and I very clearly remember there were some winters where we didn't really get a real first snow until freaking December. The skiers and snowboarders did not like that year. So winter usually comes in pretty mild, and the snow doesn't start until a little bit later. But then again, Colorado is Colorado and it does what it wants. And I think in 2020, we got our first snow in September, which is very weird. But typically in Colorado, we usually have kind of a nice Indian summer for September and kind of into October. It starts definitely getting colder in October, and by November, it's definitely starting to get cold. But cold for November is like in the 30s and 40s. And then once you get into December, it's like, okay, we've all accepted it's winter. I say all this because honestly, I feel like our real winter, like the hardcore winter you need to prepare for, doesn't happen until we think it's actually spring. March. March is always the toughest winter month in Colorado. It is the most unpredictable month. We will have weirdly warm days, but then we'll get these very intense, very heavy, wet snowstorms, one of which we just got yesterday. So at the time when most Coloradans are ready to start thinking about spring and summer, that February, March, April time period is when the snow can actually be a little bit dangerous. It also happens to be avalanche season. So if you're going up to the mountains, if you're skiing a lot, that's when the snow has like piled up and piled up and piled up on each other. And that's when it's prone to start avalanching. Just something to keep in mind. So what to do when it snows? How to prepare yourself. If you're really moving to Colorado and you're coming from a climate that really almost never snows and you're just not used to it, how can you really prepare yourself so that you're not going to be miserable through winter in Colorado? The two biggest pieces of personal gear that you really need to invest in yourself, if there's nothing else that you're going to get for yourself, the two things you need are a really good, preferably down winter jacket and some good snow boots. If there's nothing else that you get for yourself, get those two things. And I say that because you would be surprised how many people come here truly not knowing like how to dress for winter. So those are the two personal items. Obviously, buying gloves, hats, warm socks, and just warm clothes in general is obviously pretty important too. But again, if you can have nothing else, just start with a really nice like down jacket and boots, good boots. The next thing that is the most common thing I get asked, and also a pretty important thing, is what kind of car and what kind of tires you should have for winter in Colorado. And I'm gonna answer this question in a way that maybe some people will fight me on, but I know I'm right, so I'm just gonna say it. The type of car you have is not as important as the kind of tires you have on your vehicle. So you could have like a Ford Taurus with a 4-cylinder engine, 2-wheel drive, and that's your car. But if you put really, really good all-season tires on that car, you can honestly get by pretty well in Colorado. I see a lot of Ford Tauruses with 2-cylinder engines driving around in Colorado. But that only works if you're going to be living in the Front Range or the Eastern Plains. As long as you're not living and traveling a lot in the actual mountains, then you really probably do need either an all-wheel drive car or a 4-wheel drive car. But most people who move here, if you're really not used to the mountains, most people don't just jump straight from like Texas to living in the middle of nowhere in the mountains. So I'm assuming if you're moving here and you're not sure of what car to have yet, then you're going to be living in the Front Range, so the lower elevation of Colorado. And yeah, the key takeaway for you is get good tires. That is the best investment that you can make. It's almost more important than the car itself, because flip side, you could have a really awesome car. You could have like a big truck with a 6-cylinder engine that's got a lot of power, but if you are riding that thing on bald tires, you will die in Colorado every day. Okay, that was a bit extreme. You're not really gonna die, but you're gonna be slipping and sliding. I can't even tell you. The tires really are the most important thing. The tires are the things that are gripping the snow, they are getting you through the ice, and the tires are the most important thing when it comes to your car. But if you're still looking at me thinking like, Genevieve, I still want to know what types of cars specifically do you all drive in Colorado? Well, I can tell you, number one is the Subaru, and we get made fun of a lot for that. But Subarus they're just a really good Colorado mountain car. They just do well at all levels. They tend to have a lot of power. They also typically offer good all-wheel drive options and 4-wheel drive options. So you will see a lot of Subarus in Colorado, ranging from really old Subarus to new ones. So just jump on in, get a Subaru if you want to join that club. The second, I would say, most popular type of car in Colorado are Toyotas. Those are my personal favorite. I used to have a Toyota RAV4 before I was rear-ended very rudely on the highway and it was totaled. But I think Toyotas in general are also just a really great, smooth driving Colorado car. Also last forever like Subarus do. I would actually argue that some Toyotas last longer than Subarus. And again, really good all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive options. Those are honestly the top two cars. If you ask anyone in Colorado, like, what do people in Colorado drive? They're probably going to tell you Subarus and Toyotas. Those are the top. But again, any 4x4 vehicle is also popular here. You do see a lot of SUVs here, trucks, those things that can plow you up the roads. If you are going to live up in the mountains, then I definitely recommend that you get some sort of 4x4 vehicle, or at least an all-wheel drive vehicle that has a lot of power and the good snow tires. If you're living in the mountains, you might not even want to go with good all-season tires. You probably want to go with either actual snow tires or even studded snow tires, depending on your needs. But if you're living in Denver, Boulder, in a city that's along the Front Range, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, like those big metropolitan hubs, you, like I said, can probably get by with most types of cars as long as you have really good tires on them. The other question that I have been asked, kind of a surprising amount, but maybe I shouldn't be surprised, is there are a lot of people wanting to move to Colorado from other places that are warmer, and these are people who are either more transient or they're just living life on the road, and so they often ask me, can you really live successfully in your car over the winter in Colorado? And to that question, I honestly would say no. It's gonna be hard. It gets really cold here at night, and it's gonna take you a lot of energy to keep your car heated, to keep it insulated, and then not to mention the snow and where to park. And it's totally doable in the summer. In the warmer seasons, it's incredibly common in Colorado to see a lot of people that live in a truck or a van or their car. And it makes sense because it's very expensive here, so it's totally a lifestyle that exists here. But in the winter, most people who live that lifestyle, if you're planning to stay in Colorado for the winter, you usually want to find a room somewhere, because it really is, the winter is just harsh enough here that you're gonna be cold. It gets, like I said in the beginning, like below zero sometimes. And you want to be comfortable, and it could be really dangerous for you to be trying to live full-time in your car through the whole winter. The last question on this topic that I get a lot, and you can tell I get most of the questions I get are about cars and driving in winter and all that fun stuff. So the last big question that I get a lot is, how bad are the roads really in Colorado in winter? And I'm probably a little bit biased in answering this question because I've been so used to the Colorado winters for so long that to me the roads in Colorado are really, really not that bad. They're totally drivable. We've got CDOT in Colorado, and that stands for the Colorado Department of Transportation, I believe, and they are in charge of plowing all the roads, keeping all of the roads safe. And if you're driving like in a blizzard or in the middle of a snowstorm, that's dangerous. Like the visibility could be low, the roads, because it's snowing so quickly, they're probably not getting to every road at every moment, right on time. So if you're out driving in a snowstorm, that's dangerous. But in terms of like right after the snowstorm, the roads usually get back to good like pretty quickly. For example, it just was this huge snowpocalypse blizzard the past 2 days, and today the sun is already out again. The roads are back to, like, I can see my road outside right now, and it's just wet pavement again. There's like some slush, but it's just wet because it melts so quickly. They do such a great job of, clearing things out, that driving here in the winter is really not so bad. It'd be great to inform yourself on like basic snow driving skills, like not braking when you are in the middle of sliding. That's a big thing, a big thing to learn. Let your foot off the brake the minute you start to slide, otherwise you're gonna slide more. A lot of people don't know that when you're not used to driving in slick winter conditions. Also, not to drive too slow, weirdly enough, in the snow. If you start to drive too slow in winter conditions, especially if it's actively snowing, you could actually lose momentum and get stuck. You want to have just the right amount of momentum to keep you plowing through the situation so that you don't get stuck. Some people are way too cautious. They think that going slow is good, and it is good to go slow, but not too slow. And once you drive here enough, you'll kind of intuitively start to understand like what is the best speed for the given situation. And it just takes practice. So in terms of the biggest questions I've gotten about winter in Colorado for people who are new here, that pretty much covers it. The last thing I'll say that I didn't really address is when winter ends. And honestly, it could end in June. There was, I don't think last year, but the year before that, we had a snowstorm like right at the end of May. So that is not uncommon. And that's why I say our like biggest winter challenges tend to happen when you think spring should be happening, because that's just how it is here. Like I feel like our real winter is like January through like mid-May at the latest. So again, I say all that just to help you have a really good perspective of what you're getting into when you come here, how you're relating to winter. But winter here is doable. If you've never done a real like winter before, this is a good place to start. Well, I hope this video has been really helpful for you. If you would like to support my channel, you can always subscribe and learn more about Colorado in the future, or just binge watch the Colorado playlist I have. It's kind of a hard word to say, Colorado. I've lived here most of my life and it's still a hard word to say. If you really, really like me, you can always support me on my Ko-Fi account, which I so appreciate when people support me there. You can buy me a coffee if you would like. So the link for all that fun stuff is in the description below. And if you have any other questions about Colorado in general, or winter in Colorado, or if you have any extra advice that I missed, because I know a lot of Coloradans watch these as well, then please put it in the comments below, and I will be sure to see you very soon in my next video. Bye.